already available. So by connecting with these people that we've already met, already introduced our platform to, we can easily fill our campaign. I think that's day 1 or 2. I think next, after that, with the rest of the week, I think we focus on the issues that face our campus, such as involvement, allegedly in elections, such as the Campus Victory Project. Again, this is alleged. The Campus Victory Project allegedly influences our election, so removing it on day 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 is going to be very important to me.
Josie, you have 45 seconds to respond if you wish.
Yeah, one of the things that Henry and I have been very intentional about is every time we meet with a student organization, we ensure that we will maintain contact and work to represent them at every level, regardless of the outcome of this election. So we've already established that connection. One of the other things that we would also like to address is Brody's last point. It's important that students are represented in every aspect of their student government representation. And with that being said, we do not believe there is current outside involvement with student organization elections, and we believe that the Election Commission does their jobs and their due diligence thoroughly to ensure this involvement stays out.
Brody, you have 45 seconds to respond if you wish.
Are you under a non-disclosure agreement?
No.
No, you're not. Do you know of any members or affiliates to the Campus Victory Project under a non-disclosure agreement?
I believe Colby Brandt is under an NDA, but I am not entirely sure how that affects this current.
I just want to clarify to see if you could speak to it. Now that we've established that you are not under a non-disclosure agreement, were you a member or participant of the Campus Victory Project when you attended, or were you there just to gain leadership and network?
I was there for a networking opportunity when I attended Campus Victory Project. I actually had notified everyone previously that I was not going to be running for student body president. That decision came individually after the conference and was not influenced by any of the things that I saw at the conference.
And who did you network with?
We ran out of time.
Next question, and Brody may answer first. Both of your campaigns emphasize similar issues. What distinguishes your vision for the student body? 60 seconds.
I think first, we have plans for a unifying spring event. That's not something that I've seen out of the other campaign. That's something I've seen in previous administrations that has fallen through. This last year, we, as a Senate, passed a bill to create an experience where a comedian visited campus. That was for $50,000. I know because I voted for it. And before that, we'd promised a campus concert. Both of those, unfortunately, fell through. So the biggest thing that's on the top of our list is that spring event that brings people together. I think our campus is torn apart for a variety of issues. And looking at other aspects of our platform, we're looking to bring clubs together through the club clinic, have experienced leaders train up-and-coming leaders, also support student rights, also help our campus where it needs the most support.
Josie, same question to you, 60 seconds.
Yeah, one of the things that has distinguished our campaign from our counterparts from I've seen so far is we have already networked and began the conversations with the different organizations we're planning to work with here on campus. So for example, we've already had a meeting with Dr. Kudrowski. She works over at the CAT Center, and she's responsible for a majority of the voter registration initiatives that they have going. So that's something that our campaign is hoping to contribute to some of the programs that are already existing. The same can be seen within the SHOP parking ticket relief program. We're working to build on what's there because we know that a year in the grand scheme of things is not that much time. We are gonna try to leave everything better than what we found it instead of, as we've seen in the past, the possibility of having large projects fall through. So again, in order to be the most efficient, we're trying to build on what is already there.
Thank you. Brody, you have 45 seconds to respond if you choose.
Sure. The one thought that comes to mind is particularly with the parking ticket relief program. I know that this has already been expanded because I voted for the expansion myself just recently in the Student Government Senate. How do you distinguish the accomplishments of the senator's vote versus your own?
Yeah, so everything that we're aiming to do is we don't have to have the approval of the Senate, and we do very much so respect the role of the senators, but through different conversations with SHOP and the folks over there, we'll be able to implement a couple of different initiatives. So the first initiative would be to identify one in-demand food or hygiene item every single month that students can bring into student services and then have their parking ticket relieved. And I'm sorry, I do believe I just misspoke. It would have to have Senate approval. But with that being said, we are aiming to work with Senate to ensure that student opportunities can be expanded across the board and that every student has the opportunity to have access to hygiene and food products through SHOP.
And Brody, you have 45 more seconds to respond if you choose.
Do you know of any other resources that are currently supported and supporting the parking ticket relief program both?
Yeah, so you mean like what other organizations there are associated with it? So the Sloss House has some association with it, as well as Raising Readers. But again, one of the things that Henry and I were really intentional about was making sure that students have their fundamental needs met. And after our meetings with the people over at SHOP, with Charlotte and Austin, we are able to identify just another area where we can continue expanding those resources and that access.
Why not directly fund SHOP additionally?
Because Henry and I also recognize that students here on campus face a financial burden when they get a parking ticket. And I believe every single person in this room has either or knows somebody that has gotten a parking ticket when it's an accident. This is a surprise financial burden that pops up on students, and we don't want those financial burdens to be one of the things that stops them from being successful in their academic career.
We will now move on to the leadership and challenges section. Josie, you will go first for this question. At the vice presidential debate, both of your campaigns were asked how you would prevent future election code violations. Since then, both of your campaigns have accrued numerous more violations. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, with that being said, Kelly Rose campaign takes all election code violations really seriously and have since then been fully compliant with the Election Commission and whatever they've asked from us. So we've provided all of that. There are some misunderstandings and some errors that have occurred, and they were not intentional attempts to gain an unfair advantage or violate the election code in any way. So we've taken steps to clarify processes internally and ensure that continued compliance moving forward. So our campaign remains committed to transparency and accountability, and we will work to explain any and all current election code violations.
Thank you. Same question to Brody.
Could you repeat that, please?
At the vice presidential debate, both of your campaigns were asked how you would prevent future election code violations. Since then, both of your campaigns have accrued numerous more. What do you have to say about that?
I would say filling out violations allegedly to make things try to stick is silly. I don't think that's very respectful of the time of the Election Commission. I know they've expressed that frustration, spamming the form, other forms of disrespect. I would say that in our campaign, we aim to follow the election code as close as we can. I've read it numerous times between those first violations, either looking for violations that I've allegedly seen myself or others have seen and reported those as according to the election code. So following that is very important to us, and we've read it again and again and again.
Josie, you have the chance to respond if you wish.
Yeah, so I agree with everything that Brody just said. Last night we had a couple of violations come in, and since then I have had a phone call with the election commissioner to clear up that I understand the code and to help clarify some of those things. So last night I was actually made aware that someone monitored my room reservations and then went to the location specifically to try to confront me and my team. So regardless of the intent, this crosses into behavior that I find concerning. Just as a student, knowing that someone is watching where I'm supposed to be going and showing up expecting me to be there in hopes of finding a violation, it crosses a line that it's no longer campaigning and feels more like intimidation. So I agree with Brody. I don't believe that we should be frivolously filing campaign violations because it goes against everything that we believe in.
Brody, you also have the chance to respond.
You know, this one's pretty silly. Coincidentally, our meeting was in the same room where you put the wrong name on the tablet. So when we walked out and we saw Kelly Rose, we immediately knew from our reading of the election code that that was a violation. Coming back later to see that is still there and taking a picture when no one else is in the room besides the librarian, I think you're insinuating that's harassment, which has been another claim that you've had on election code violations. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, so my comment would be, I again had a phone call with Santi, the election commissioner, and From our perspective, we did not violate any election code because within the code that was cited, it was under the different events that were being had. We reserved this room. We were not having a campaign event. Obviously, the violation will go to hearing, but again, I clarified to make sure that my understanding of the code was also in line with what the election commissioner was saying. From my perspective as an individual student, to see photos of the room that I was supposed to be in photographed, and then to go in and photograph numerous different other instances where I was supposed to be present in a room, it made me feel uncomfortable, and I believe every person within this room could also say that that would make them feel uncomfortable as well.
Please directly name the other instances you named, because those did not happen. My point.
No, I'm allowed to respond? Yeah, so within the violation submission form, there were multiple different instances where you went back and...
I believe that's time. Thank you.
All right, next question. Brody will respond first. The Iowa legislature is currently considering House Study Bill 534, which would eliminate the student seat on the Iowa Board of Regents. What do you think of this proposal, and how can we ensure that students' voices are still represented at the Board of Regents?
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, of course, I can repeat that. The Iowa legislature is currently considering House Study Bill 534, which would eliminate the student seat on the Iowa Board of Regents. What do you think of this proposal, and how can we ensure that students' voices are still represented at the Iowa Board of Regents?
So I'm not aware of the current legislation. However, I know the Board of Regents is an essential tool for students to advocate their voices, their thoughts, their feelings through their student government leaders. That would be me if I'm elected your president, and through Nolan if he's elected your vice president. So the Board of Regents requires a lot of collaboration. Having a seat at the table would be very important to me. Our past president, Colby Brandt, served on the Presidential Search Committee. He helped select the current president of Iowa State, who's incoming on March 1st. That's Dr. David Cook. So having that seat at the table is very important so that we can guide our higher education. So I would be in favor of keeping that seat and keeping that space at the table. Additionally, if that does go through, I would refer to our Legislative Ambassadors Committee. I think they'd be a really great resource that I can chair or select a chair for who can help me with those duties. Excuse me, not chair. From those, we can then make interpersonal connections.
Josie, same question to you, 60 seconds.
Yeah, I mirror a lot of the things that Brody has just mentioned. I believe that student voices are incredibly important when it comes to having representation at the table. This can be seen in a lot of the meetings that Henry and I have already had. We bring a unique perspective, and a lot of the times when we are discussing with staff and faculty and people who have been removed from the university process or the student experience by a couple of years, all overlook some of the different aspects that students bring to the table. So I think it's important that you're able to advocate for everything that you believe in. You're able to show up prepared and advocate for the overall student voice.
Thank you. Brody, you have 45 seconds if you choose to respond.
Yeah, I'm glad we agree on those. One question, and this comes from your time at the alleged prospective victory retreat. There was a session called, allegedly, Regent and Trustee. What did you learn in the Regent and Trustee session at the prospective victory retreat, if you attended?
Yeah, so during this time, it was just an educational opportunity that was brought before everyone. So learning what a student regent is and does. That was primarily what Nolan and I both heard at that conference.
Do you have a chance to respond to that?
You do.
Okay, there the timer is. What was your biggest takeaway, or what do you wish you brought back to Iowa State to work with our regents?
I appreciated getting to learn a little bit more about what a student regent does and what a student regent is. Previously, it was a role that I was not super familiar with, but as many people do know, I interned in Washington, D.C. I guess it was a year ago now, and I did get to hear the perspective of another past student regent, so being able to expand on what her opportunity was a little bit more and hear some of the different perspectives that a student regent brings and the different responsibilities that are brought upon that student position was really valuable information to hear.
And was this event invite only, or is there a recruitment process to get you to go to this event?
So this event was I was invited to it, but again, I had not decided to have any affiliation with the student government election process when I attended.
Who invited you?
Colby Brandt.
Next question. Campaigns can become heated and strain personal relationships. Regardless of the election outcome, how will you work with members of student government that supported the opposing slate? Josie, you may answer first.
That supported the opposing slate, you said? Henry and I, when we are forming our cabinet and when we are advocating on behalf of some of the different things that we campaigned here for, we'll make sure to keep an open mind and listen to all students. It's important that we have a good relationship with all students involved in student government, because without the Senate, we won't be able to pass different initiatives. Without those chief officers, the relationships will really become strained. And so I understand right now, tensions are really high and students do feel really passionately about the different candidates that they represent. But I will say, Henry and I, we, in everything we do, are able to separate our personal and professional lives. And so it's important that we will have this separation to work in the best capacity possible with other students who may have disagreed with our campaign points.
Same question to you, Brody.
I would say we're very fortunate. Also, at the same time as the executive elections happening are Senate elections. So there's lots of running candidates who are either in the room. I see a lot of familiar faces of people who have been Senate members before. I think one shares a stage with me, having been elected before with, I think, 599 votes. Otherwise, there's all kinds of connections in this room that have already been made. I think enhancing those and connecting with the people who are incoming sets up the foundation for next year. Working together after this debate, after this election cycle, that first month is very critical to that process. I think as senators, we all experience that. As new people come in from vacancies, we experience that as well. I've been a senator, I've worked with senators before, and I know how to build those relationships.
Josie, you have time to respond if you wish.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's important that we work with the students that are incoming, but it's also important to work with the students that are reelected. It's important that across the board we can have good relationships. This has been seen, I believe, through my leadership with my involvement with as the Senior Director of Communications. I chaired the Public Relations Committee, and through that committee, I've had to balance a variety of different perspectives about how different students feel like they need to be represented, how different students feel like we should be participating in outreach events. Brody is actually on that committee, and he's done a great job so far voicing his opinion. But being able to balance all of those different relationships is one of the biggest things that I took away from that position that has been super valuable so far.
Brody, you also have a chance to respond if you wish.
Yeah, I just echo that. I too shared that value of a great time on the Public Relations Committee. It ties into my campaign point of making the word get out about student government. That's what I was all about. I wish more people knew. I wish I could have been the chair of PR and pushing even more posts and scheduled events and timing our marketing. Otherwise, I think the connections with senators, I share them now. I see them sitting on my side of the room, but for the others who don't share my values, I think, again, echoing that we can rebuild those connections and make the friendship and the community that we already share in student government.
You both have 45 seconds for back and forth if you wish.
Yeah, so Brody, my question is, what would you have implemented a little bit differently that so far you haven't seen with the Public Relations Committee?
Public relations, the things that I would implement different are second layers of editing. So a lot of student government Senate recaps I wrote myself or with Senator Jake Snyder, and those often got published with errors. As a first-time reader going through your own work, just like an essay, it's really hard to catch every mistake, and I'm sad that I let them through. However, having a second layer of editing is really important for a professional brand that you want to market to 30,000 students. So I'd say if I would change anything about Public Relations Committee, I would make sure that the errors get caught in all of our postings before they're live.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. And from there, one of the things that I've implemented is we've since added a second layer of posting, of reading. One of the biggest things that I faced as Senior Director of Communications is we didn't have a Director of Marketing for a little bit, and this was because we were really looking for the perfect candidate. So it is a lot to balance as a student, and I'll be the first one to admit that I'm not perfect, but it is important that we are able to look back at some of the different things that, different mistakes we had or different challenges that we overcame, and identify an action plan to make sure that those mistakes don't happen again. So that's one of the things that so far as Senior Director of Communications I've really tried to do is implement those checks and balances to ensure smooth sailing for the rest of the Senate session.
Thank you both. And next we'll move to our second topic of the night, diversity. And Brody will go first for this question. With the closure of DI spaces and the transition of spaces like the center, many students feel their sense of belonging is at risk. How will your administration support these students while navigating state requirements?
Yeah, I think this was a similar question from last year, and it stands important. The diversity and the audience and the population that makes up our student body is very important to us. That's why we're committed to protecting student rights, protecting identity groups, protecting what people have their backgrounds or interests in. Those things are important to us. One particular instance is the club clinic. Clubs from any side of campus, any direction, any ideas can come visit the club clinic where we'll develop their leaders and we can give them a fast track to getting in front of Senate for funding. There's 14 pages of priorities and criteria, at least I believe the last time I checked. That's the rules for how to get funding for your club. So by having somebody sit down with you, you can find the 5 rules that apply to you and not the 14 pages that might not.
Thank you, Brody. Josie, 60 seconds, same question to you.
Santi, I can't understand when you ask questions, so can you ask it again?
Yes, of course.
Sorry.
With the closure of DI spaces and the transition of spaces like the center, many students feel their sense of belonging is at risk. How will your administration support these students while navigating state requirements?
Yeah, so one of the things that Henry and I are running on is to increase student organization opportunities. So this is just by increasing the awareness of the different resources that are available, and we've discussed previously how this includes our implementation of the different resource newsletter, as well as streamlining a lot of the executive officer trainings that each officer has to take in a student organization to ensure they're fully aware of each opportunity available to them. We believe that student organizations have a unique perspective, and they're able to meet the needs of the students that they have regardless of the issues that they're facing. So we want to make sure that we're strengthening those student organizations. Henry and I also recognize that many students have lost direct resources. And so it's important that we make sure that they feel included on campus and like they feel like they have someone to go to on campus, because we, again, value each student's perspective across the board here at Iowa State.
Brody, you have 45 seconds to respond.
I like those ideas. Our campaign would go even further with a 72-hour maximum response time. You email us, one of our members from the club clinic will get an email back to you in 72 hours or less. That also includes in-person office hours with an open door policy where clubs can come visit, their leaders can come visit, and we can strengthen the connections that already exist at Iowa State and improve the clubs. I think there's 743 if I'm not mistaken. So strengthening our clubs is a very critical issue that faces our campus, especially as it relates to diverse ideas and diverse backgrounds.
Josie, you have 41 more seconds to respond.
Yes, so Henry and I, again, believe that while 72 hours is a great commitment to have, we believe each student deserves a response within 24 hours, and we'll be able to create an actionable plan from there. So with that being said, it is important that each student has access to resources and each student organization has access to resources. We do believe that the conversation should get started, but we also fully recognize that as a student, in student organization, the word student comes first. And so our concern with the club clinic would be that it would be increasing a lot of workload on current student government administration and officials, as well as any staff or faculty. So I guess one of the questions that I'm going to have for Brody is, how are you going to balance that extra time commitment?
For me personally, in growing as a leader, I've learned that delegation is a very important skill. When you're managing an organization that is this large and has a student population of just around 30,000 students, it's very important that you delegate. You can't meet every student, you can't email every student even. With that large of a group, you have to delegate. So working with our own committee that we add, whether it's a task force, a committee, a dedicated group of students, I think we can schedule around the changing needs of college student schedules, work schedules, school schedules, activities, all those things with enough people on our committee. Please let me know if you're interested after the election, and we can make that feasible.
I agree that a committee is important. I'm not allowed to finish my statement. Okay.
You can continue. You have 45 seconds.
While I believe the establishment of a committee is important, it's also important to recognize that the people within your cabinet, within these committees, are also students. I had to face the current decision as Senior Director of Communications. Do I cut back on my current workload as a student worker, or do I take out a student loan? And I chose to take out a student loan because I could not feasibly increase the workload that I have. I then began delegating to people on the Public Relations Committee, but again, the word student comes before every single, it comes before student organization. So how are you gonna balance the schedules of the people that you're delegating these tasks to?
And Brody, you're out of time. We'll move on to the next question.
Both campaigns have stated their steps towards promoting diversity at Iowa State and in student government. What criteria will you use to measure the effectiveness of these policies? Kelly, you can go first.
Yeah, so one of the first pieces of criteria that we will utilize is through just the measurable outcomes in participation in the different activities that we're planning on scheduling. So the first one would be that voter registration drive. One of the big things that affects Iowa State's voting turnout is the two lowest populations that turn out to vote are males and are STEM majors. And luckily, Iowa State is really awesome. 60% of our population is males, and we do have a really strong STEM population. But with that being said, it is hard to get students registered to vote, and it is hard to get students out to the polls. So if we see those numbers drive up, that will be one measurable outcome. Additionally, students' participation within the parking ticket relief program, within the different initiatives that we have with SHOP, those would all be measurable opportunities that we would use to measure the success of the different initiatives that we have.
Brody, same question.
I'm again having hard times hearing the questions. Can you repeat it?
Both campaigns have stated their steps towards promoting diversity at Iowa State and in student government. What criteria will be used to measure the effectiveness of these policies?
Instead of creating something new and trying to brainstorm and spend all this time, which Josie says we don't have to invest, right? That's a need of college students, right? Investing in your studies. What we can use is the already existing IDEA committee. The IDEA committee in student government already has measurable outcomes that they track throughout the year, or at least that's what I understand from my role as a senator. One thing that we could track is our events, which happen through student government from identity-based groups. That's an easy one. Those records already exist from last year and from years ago. If we fund an event through student government, we put a number down. We do it again, we put another number down. I think it's pretty straightforward, and then expanding upon that is simple. I am a STEM major, and I am also a male. So in my STEM major, I know quite a bit about Excel and data, and we can easily collect that and make a great initiative.
Josie, you have a chance to respond if you wish.
Yeah, one of the strengths about our platform in particular, Henry and I's platform, is the fact that we are deciding to partner with so many pre-established organizations here on campus. So again, Dr. Kudrowski over at the CAT Center, she was enthusiastic and honestly thrilled to hear about some of the different initiatives that we had, because again, one of their issues is the fact that they have all these resources, they have all the materials, but they don't have the manpower. We've been able to identify how we can put into action our current Legislative Ambassadors Committee, which doesn't really start doing work until about the January timeframe, to make sure that literature boxes are stocked for students across campus and students are getting registered to vote. Additionally, we're partnering with SHOP to ensure that they are able to continue the good work that they're doing. So we're just continuing partnerships that already exist.
Brody, you may respond.
Is there a strategic plan to schedule around the busy schedules of students, not having to take out loans versus staying in their work for doing all these tasks, filling the boxes, all of those things? I'm curious to know.
Yeah, so as you are aware, you have to reach specific outreach credits. So that would be one incentive that we'd be using, is the different outreach credit initiatives. Additionally, the Legislative Ambassadors Committee has students that are all really interested in getting involved in civic participation here on campus. So by utilizing those students that are already expressing the fact that they don't have much to do until that January timeframe, we would be able to directly put into action some of the different initiatives that we have planned.
Okay.
All right, next question, our final question in this section of the debate, and Brody may go first. If elected, how do you plan to promote inclusivity within student government?
Inclusivity in student government is very important. This past year, I don't know if I hold the view, but I've heard a lot of fuss about the involvement of students in ag. I think students should be involved from everywhere on campus. That's why we've been everywhere on campus with our campaign already. Filling the cabinet with diverse backgrounds and mindsets and ideas is very important to me. Picking people who aren't my friends is important to me. I think all these values help with this in particular. I brushed on the idea committee. That's a good resource too.
Josie, same question to you, 60 seconds.
Yeah, so we've already established a campaign team that brings diverse perspectives from almost every single college, almost every single group representation here on campus. We will do the same exact thing in creating our cabinet. So one of the things that Henry and I did was we did cold email, we did cold text people asking about if they'd be interested in any involvement with our campaign team. Our campaign team, again, is comprised of over 60 individuals, and many of those relationships were formed through word of mouth connection and through asking, through different networking opportunities. So if elected, we will do the same exact thing to fill our cabinet. Additionally, we respect the idea that a lot of people feel like there's a lot of ag influence in the current cabinet. I'd like to address this specifically as an ag major. The College of Agriculture and Life Science brings top talent from across the nation, so it shouldn't be a surprise that there is a lot of agricultural influence in student government, but this is not the only representation.
We already have 45 seconds to respond if you choose.
Just a few seconds here. Are there many international students who are involved in agriculture? I know that's a big perspective that our students in student government have been discussing. They've wanted a representative specifically for international students. You know, do you see that right now in the College of Ag and Life Sciences and in your campaign?
Yeah, so there's Global Resource Systems, which is a major that is directly meant to bring a global perspective, bring in international students. There's also EOS, which is a student organization here on campus that focuses on bringing international perspective and agriculture together. Food is a fundamental right for every single person here in this room, here on planet Earth, and agriculture. Your food doesn't come from the grocery store. Your food comes from agricultural backgrounds. So every single person brings a different perspective to the world of agriculture. And just because you're in a major that has the word ag in front of it should not directly discredit the work that you're doing here on campus.
We already have 45 more seconds to respond if you want.
I think this is a really great perspective. I've learned a lot about farm to table and how your food actually gets to where you consume it, and I think that's very important. But specifically, were there any international students on your campaign team or any perspectives that you've sought out for your campaign or plans for cabinet?
Yeah, so one of the current individuals that we have on our coalition is Azan. So he was in Senate. Many of the senators do know him, but he's on our coalition team. He brings a unique perspective. Again, we have been intentional, even if they're not on our campaign team. Henry and I have met with a variety of student organizations of international students, the most recent one being the Indian Student Association. So we value that diverse perspective, and we want to hear those perspectives.
Is Azan still a supporter? I saw his post removed from your page.
Yeah, so Azan did, he did bring to us the fact that he did face some questions and some backlash just after the vice presidential debate. He didn't fully pull his endorsement, but he did want it archived temporarily. I can't speak on his behalf right now, but so far he has been supportive of our campaign.
Was this about allegations with the Campus Victory Project?
It was with those allegations. Again, the Kelly Rose campaign team has no affiliation with the Campus Victory Project.
Brody, you still have 27 more seconds if you choose to have any further discussion.
You talked about building your campaign team. Was there any member or executive in student government who helped you build your campaign team early on?
And Josie has no more time. Josie has no more time.
Oh, okay.
Now we will move on to campus impact. Josie will go first. Iowa State is in a time of transition with the departure of former President Wendy Winterstein and the arrival of David Cook. One of you will be the first ISU student body president to work with President Cook. How will you work to establish a working relationship with the new ISU administration?
With the new ISU administration?
Administration, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so Henry and I have met with numerous different faculty and staff across Senate, and we've really formed a lot of relationships so far with those individuals. So one of the first things that we will aim to do with the new president, David Cook, would be to make that introduction and get to know him a little bit more. But it's also really important that we are representing the students here on campus. So that relationship is one that we will value immensely, but we will also be advocating on behalf of every single ISU student here on campus to ensure each voice is heard.
Same question to you, Brody.
We've already met with campus administrators just beyond staff, right? We've met with the people who are key decision makers in the university, and we look forward to relationships with the incoming administrators such as Dr. Cook. I was at a session when he spoke on this very stage. Actually, he's in front here a little bit, but I was in line to ask questions. I am already engaged with our key administrators at Iowa State. I have a lot of respect for what they do. I have a lot of respect for what President Wendy Winterstein's tenure was at Iowa State. I really enjoyed Senator Gertis's bill recognizing President Winterstein and was glad I could have my name on that. The relationship with administrators is how you can get anything done. If we want to have a spring event, that's going to take administrator buy-in. I don't think just working with faculty and staff and maybe hoping one of them pass it on is enough. I think going to the top and meeting with the people who are the decision makers is very critical to getting a spring event and having a unifying experience for all Iowa State students.
Josie, you have a chance to respond.
Yeah, I would like to just clarify, when I say faculty and staff, that also does include administration. So it is important to us that we continue strengthening those relationships. So that's all I have to say on that.
Brody, do you have a response?
Would you say your alleged involvement in the Campus Victory Project has damaged the relationship you might build with an administrator?
I would again like to be clear that the Kelly Rose campaign has no affiliation with the Campus Victory Project, and I do not believe that any of our relationships have been damaged. Again, you're innocent until proven guilty, and we haven't had any affiliation.
Were you affiliated with the Campus Victory Project when you allegedly attended the Prospective Victory Retreat?
The retreat, the conference, was an educational conference that I attended. There was no affiliation after that attendance.
So you do say that you were affiliated when you attended because there's no affiliation after?
I went to a conference the same as Nolan did.
And did you continue your involvement with the views, ideas, learning of the Prospective Victory Retreat?
No.
You did not. Why did you, I guess my question is, did you tell your running mate or when?
Henry was made aware that I went to a conference to learn more about student government, the same as Nolan, but there was no other discussion because we are not affiliated with Campus Victory Project.
Was Nolan the first one to tell him on this stage?
Was what?
Was Nolan the first to tell him on this stage? Or when did you tell Henry that you had attended the Campus Victory Project Prospective Victory Retreat?
Henry knew, I guess, at the beginning of our time together. Henry had known that I attended the conference before that debate on Thursday. Again, we don't have any affiliation, therefore it wasn't an issue.
But you do agree that you did have an affiliation when you attended?
I attended a conference similarly to how every student has attended a leadership conference in the past.
And that's time. Brody, you still have 16 seconds left. Just be aware Josie will not be able to respond to any questions, so the 16 seconds are yours.
Okay, I guess hypotheticals then. You said previous conferences. Does this include the current administration? Does this include other Iowa State students who might have attended and then recruited them? I would like to know.
Moving on to our next question. What area do you see student government not paying attention to? And if elected, what would you do to help that area? Brody, 60 seconds.
I'm sorry, can you repeat it again?
Of course. What area do you see student government not paying attention to? And if elected, what would you do to help that area? 60 seconds.
Unfortunately, I don't think there's a nice way to say all. I think in every way, student government can be better. We have to have our name out on this campus. I think the engagement with our social media speaks to a larger audience than what might actually know about what student government truly does. That's why that campaign point shows up first on our social media. That is receiving engagement. We're hoping to get some traction with that. The engagement of students into student government, the buy-in, so to speak, I think that's very critical to the organization, and first is getting the word out.
Josie, same question to you, 60 seconds.
Yeah, I believe that we represent 31,000 students here on campus, and every single student has a different background and a different perspective, and so we'll have to work really hard to ensure that every single student is represented within student government. But with that being said, there are different things and different initiatives that we can partake in to ensure that students know who student government is. Yes, social media is one of those different things, but one of the things that I've seen directly as Senior Director of Communications is that our name gets out there best when we're outside tabling, when we're at events, when we're having different initiatives. So that would be one of my priorities, is making sure that students actually see us more than just behind a phone screen. Because one of the things that I've learned as a public relations student is you can only go so far on social media. It actually matters that you're showing up and that you're making those face-to-face interactions. So those tabling events, those different initiatives are all really important to Henry and I.
Brody, you have 45 seconds to respond, if you choose.
Nothing further.
Any other further comment, Josie?
Yeah, with that being said, I would just like to dive in just a little bit more. Some of the different ways that we will be making that face-to-face interaction would be those different, the voter registration drives, those initiatives where you're seeing the student government face-to-face, making sure that we're having things like the town hall, that we're having different pop-up events. The Student Government Expo is another really great one, or one of the things that I participated in during 801 Day was that safety golf cart patrol. I patrolled for, I think it was 5 hours, giving out students liquid IV and water and breakfast burritos. And let me tell you, students on 801 Day, when you're coming up with a student government shirt and you have a free burrito, they really like student government. So making sure we're doing things like that to ensure our name is getting out there is really important.
Brody, you have 45 more seconds if you have any further comment.
I'm very excited that we can get the word out about student government. So at the expo, when I attended, people were there for the pizza, then they left. Maybe on 801 Day, they got the burrito, they smiled, they said thanks, and they left. Maybe they didn't say thanks, right? People don't know about student government, and that's a difference that the Cousy-Clemsford campaign can make, and they can change the lives of students through our initiatives, through our focus on making student government known to all students. Again, there's a reason why it's first. We care about it, and it's very, very difficult to receive help from an organization if you don't even know the name. It's hard for students to know that student government is helping them get on every SciRide bus, etc. It goes on. So getting the word out about student government to all students is very important.
Josie, you have 45 more seconds to respond. Just be aware, Brody doesn't have time left, so we won't be able to answer any questions.
Yep, so I agree, but one of the things that I've been seeing, again, as Senior Director of Communications, is when we have different events, like the Luke Combs concert ticket pop-up, we've gained hundreds of followers from those pop-ups, and they haven't left after the initiative. So the first thing that is most important is that those events are happening, and then we can utilize social media afterwards. But it is important that we are making that face-to-face interaction, it is important that we're being intentional, and it is important that we are doing our best to reach out to students and meet them where they're at.
Thank you both. House Study Bill 545 could pave the way to the reinstatement of VISA. What are your thoughts on this? Josie, you can go first.
Yeah, Henry and I, we believe that it is important to have campus unifying events, and it is important to have tradition here at Iowa State. So with that being said, through all of our different campaign initiatives and through all the different opportunities we've had to speak with students, we believe that unity and connection happens when you're interacting at different events as an entire campus. So we would be supportive of the potential idea or being involved in conversations that happen with VISA.
Brody, same question to you.
I would say we would not be in favor of VISA. VISA brought some really great things to our campus, such as student unity, such as cultural celebrations, such as college celebrations, people showing off the projects that they spent their semester or their year working on. It was really great things. And then it led to problems. The police officers in the back of the room, they might be familiar with the problems that happened from VISHA. There were some really bad things. We would not be in support of bringing VISHA back, which is why we're focusing on a spring unifying event, something that's not going to tear apart our streets, something that's not going to tear apart our community, but rather bring us together.
Josie, you may respond.
Yeah, with that being said, the same can be said about 801 Day, and that's why student government worked to have that safety golf cart patrol. So there are things that we can do to ensure there is safety across campus. Again, we're not running on a platform to bring VISHA back, but it would be something that we'd be open to exploring.
Brody, you may respond.
I would remain with my stance that VISHA brought some great things and it brought some bad things. We're going to focus on the great and hopefully remove the bad. One thing to consider is that this would require a study by the Board of Regents, not the implementation. So again, having a seat at that table with the Board of Regents, the view that I share is important. I think those two things go hand in hand. For the students of Iowa State to amplify their voices that, VISHA had great things and it had bad things and we want the great, maybe that means that they say VISHA should not come back. At the end of their study, they're going to have a final answer that's going to be yes or no. It's not going to be a maybe.
Josie, you may respond if you wish.
I don't have anything to respond with.
Very well. We'll be moving on to our next topic, personality. This question is for Brody first. What is one imperfection about yourself that you embrace? You have 60 seconds.
One imperfection about myself, did you say that I embrace?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I talked about delegation. I wish I could be a better delegator. I'm the president of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, 200 rostered members. It gets busy, and I wish I could delegate a little more to the club leaders that I work with. I wish I could delegate more to the members and get them involved. It's very easy for me to say I might be able to do something and then get a busy schedule or have something come up with work that I have to attend to. So being able to delegate is an imperfection that I wish I could fix, and in student government, I have great plans to do so.
Josie, same question to you, 60 seconds.
Yeah, when seeking out my running mate, I was looking for someone that really balanced out some of the imperfections that I might have. And you can ask anybody here, I do take things very seriously, and I can be a little bit stressed out sometimes. So with that being said, I do choose to prioritize the student organizations that I'm a part of. I do choose to prioritize some of the different homework and student activities that I have and I'm a part of. And so that's why when I was looking for a running mate, Henry was really the perfect running mate. He knows how to be serious. He knows how to get things done, but he also knows when it is time to take a step back, look at everything from a 3,000-foot perspective, and then jump right back in and get to work. So he has really helped me balance out a lot of my imperfections, and through my candidacy, I would really rely on him and the people in the cabinet to ensure that I don't take things too seriously or too hardly on myself.
Brody, you have 45 seconds if you have any response.
I don't think I have anything.
Josie, 45 seconds of any further comment?
Yeah, so I guess one of the questions that I would have for Brody is how would you choose to then, what are some of your actions to be able to be a better delegator? Because as we've seen through student government, there is a lot of different moving parts and there is a lot of different things happening and you can't do it all. So what are some of the different perspectives and things that you bring to ensure that you can balance yourself out a little bit better?
Yeah, so within student government, as executives, Nolan and I will get to select a cabinet. The cabinet is our key group. They're the deal breakers. I mean, they are the great group who strengthen our student government and will be the primary recipients of any delegation. They're the chairs of all the committees, IDEA, finance, all of the list of committees, right? All the things that student government does and all of the functions of student government is where you'd have to delegate. And as president and vice president, we get the pleasure of deciding what can go where. So if somebody comes to our club clinic requesting funding, we're going to send them to the finance committee. So I think we have a really great structure already, and I don't know that I'd change anything to disrupt that.
And then, Josie, you have 45 more seconds if any further comment.
Yeah, so I guess one of the things that I had to learn as Senior Director of Communications is how to delegate. And in this role and in this position, there are going to be a ton of different opportunities that we have a lot of responsibility. And one of the ways that I've done this most recently was I was responsible for running the shuttle naming contest. At the same time, I was responsible for having different meetings for the Luke Combs concert tickets, and as well as doing the senator's spotlights and scheduling those. And I really had to rely on my team a lot to ensure that everything was getting done and I wasn't missing anything. So delegation is super important, and I hope that, Brody, you establish a good cabinet if you are elected, but I've seen firsthand how important it is because you do get overwhelmed pretty easily.
And that's time. Brody, you have a little bit of time left. Just be aware, Josie's out of time, so she can't answer any more questions.
I'm excited to be in.
Thank you both.
Next question. What previous experience do you have that could shape how you lead as president if elected? Josie, you may go first.
Yeah, so I've spoken a lot on my Senior Director of Communications role in that position. So through that position so far, there has been numerous different times where I have had to balance the different perspectives and the different views that everyone brought to the table. Each situation needs to be handled a little bit differently. So being able to effectively communicate has been one of my biggest strengths and one of the things that I've relied on the most. Additionally, I bring a really unique perspective in the sense of I'm able to separate, or I'm able to, I guess, include a variety of different opinions. Some of the different things that I've been involved in throughout my college experience was I've had the opportunity to work within Washington, D.C., within the State House, and then I've run a multitude of different campaigns across the aisle for local and government office. So being able to bring a new perspective, diverse ideas, and fully understand where everyone is coming from will be one of my greatest strengths to this position.
Same question to you, Brody.
Could you repeat it, please?
What previous personal experience do you have that would shape how you would lead as president if elected?
This isn't the first stage I've been on. I've had quite a few leadership roles. I've spoken in front of large audiences, sometimes to online audiences of thousands or in-person audiences, a little bit bigger than this room, to the back. This room I've spoken in before with a full audience in a leadership position. I think all of those things coming together makes up the leader that I am today. Combining that with my Senate experience, if you go watch any video recording of the Senate, like we have video going today, that's the Student Government YouTube channel, you can see my passion. I speak my mind, I speak my students, speak my constituents. I think bringing all those things together make me a great leader. And that doesn't make me so that I don't have things to learn, such as delegation, like I shared, but I am open to learning more as a leader, but also combine those experiences I already have.
Josie, you have a chance to respond if you wish.
Yeah, like Brody, I have an extensive experience publicly speaking. I served as an Iowa FFA state officer and gave a retiring address in front of 6,000 individuals. Speaking in front of a room is nothing new to me, but I will say turning what I can say into action is most important to me in everything I do. So this can be seen, again, through my role in student government. This can be seen through my current presidency as Ag Policy Club president. This can be seen throughout the different internship experiences I've had. I've had 5 experiences so far, spanning multiple different industries, multiple different tasks and job descriptions. So I'm able to bring a unique perspective, and I'm able to fully assess the different situations and outcomes and ideas of the people around me so I can meaningfully act on everything that I do.
Brody, you have a chance to respond.
If I were to add any qualities of my own that I think are very important for this position, it's pride, it's integrity, and it's honesty. I'm proud to say I'm not bought or paid for. I'm proud to say that I've been a senator of student government. I'm proud to say that I am an honest person and an honest leader, and I'll continue that in student government.
You may also respond if you wish.
I'm also proud to say that I'm not bought or paid for. The Kelly Rose campaign does not have any outside or private organization support. It has not had any affiliation. Everything that I have done so far with my running mate, Henry Rose, has been done by students for students, and we will continue to lead that way. It's awesome to look out at my team right now and see the multiple different perspectives that are brought, the different colleges that are represented, the different student groups that are represented, and that's something that I'm proud to bring to the table in everything I do.
Looking at the prospective victory retreat, what organizations paid for money, travel, training, materials, or strategy?
Again, that is a student leadership opportunity that is completely separate from everything here, but it was paid for by the Campus Victory Project. But
you have
again,
any
there is
suspicion of that?
no affiliation between my campaign that I'm running right now and the experience that both Nolan Klemsrud and I had at PVR CVP.
Brody, you still have about 40 seconds left, but Josie is out of time, so she won't be able to answer any questions.
Yeah, again, in case that question wasn't heard, it was asking what organizations provided travel, training, materials, or strategy. I understand there's a Grand Hyatt resort that was paid for completely. I think 4.5 stars out of 5. I'm just naturally curious if there is suspicion if that was paid for. I'm naturally curious if you considered why that was paid for. I'm naturally curious if the conference center was expensive and if you considered the expense in all of these things in your alleged attendance.
And that's time. So for our next question, and Bertie will go first, it is important to put on a good front when necessary. When was the last time you needed to set aside a personal conflict to assess a problem?
Setting aside conflict is something that I'm pretty familiar with. I've worked for the Iowa State Daily for the past 14 months as an academics journalist or a writer. Working with that team, conflict, it can arise. If you're asked to cover a student government event as a member of student government, but also a writer, that's obviously a conflict. You can't do that. So addressing those with my team has been very important. Through the Daily, I've had some really great success stories, though, such as the What's My Fee series. So that looked at your U-bill and explained what each fee was that you were required to pay every semester. So even though there could have been conflict in covering GPSS in certain scenarios or student government in events, meetings, retreats, etc., keeping that separation between success in work and success in student government was important for me.
Josie, same question to you, 60 seconds.
Yeah, can you repeat it? Sorry.
Yeah, of course.
Echo.
It is important to put on a good front when necessary. When was the last time you need to set aside personal conflict to assess a problem?
Yeah, so I would say the last time that I had to set aside a personal conflict to assess a larger problem or address a larger problem would have been through my time as Senior Director of Communications. When I first came into the position, there was some conflict between the Senate and the Cabinet and some different situations like that. So it was one of those situations where there was a lot of conflict, but I was going to set aside that conflict, and I worked with senators, and I worked to hear different perspectives, and I worked to implement the different projects that they had interest in. So no matter how I felt personally, I will say, personally, that first couple of weeks, it was intimidating, it was scary, I didn't feel like I was necessarily valued all the time, but I was able to set that aside to become an actionable member of Cabinet.
Brody, you have 45 seconds to respond.
Do you believe at the Prospective Victory Retreat that there is conflict in the following sessions? Why you should run, creating your ticket/slate plus campaign team, slates worksheet, PVR candidate selection, coalition building plus whip systems, platform building, platform breakout, Q&A session, probably not, regent and trustee, policy in office, the purpose and value of resolutions, being ready for debates.
You have 45 seconds to respond to that.
So again, I would like to be explicitly clear that Nolan Klemsrud and I attended the exact same conference. So I guess just in hindsight, no, it didn't. The networking opportunities that were made available to me via the relationships that I formed with students of multiple different ideas, multiple different backgrounds, that potentially had some perspective, but not any of the content that was presented. But for clarity, for students, can you also confirm that neither you nor anyone on your campaign team has requested or received any materials, any services, or strategic support from an outside organization?
Where do you have 45 seconds for your back and forth?
I have no personal knowledge of support from an outside organization. All I've discovered is links that say Turning Point USA and the Campus Victory Project have pro-Israel beliefs. That's documented, that's online. These materials, I don't know how they could possibly support us because we do not follow the support beliefs or morality of the Campus Victory Project, and we've removed ourselves from the Prospective Victory Retreat Campus Victory Project since Nolan returned. And actually, he went knowing that he was there to learn all about the influence that Campus Victory Project has on our campus.
I would like to be explicitly clear. A lot of the materials that I've seen circulated on platforms like Yik Yak, like platforms across social media, those are all materials. The materials citing pro-Israel rhetoric are all materials that they were not present at the conference, and from all research I have done are years old. So it's outdated information. Turning Point was not associated with Campus Victory Project. None of the ideologies you're describing were associated with the conference. The conference was an educational opportunity to network with students. And both Nolan and I participated in that conference. I attended without the intention of ever being involved with that organization.
That's time. Brody, you have 8 seconds, but Josie doesn't have any time left, so these 8 seconds are yours.
I'm curious why you attended if you weren't going to use their help.
Josie has no more time. We'll move on to our next question.
We will now go to questions aimed at the candidates' platforms. Josie, you will go first. One of your campaign points emphasizes the creation of a student organization newsletter. Student engagement already has a newsletter focused on student organizations. How is your proposal different, and how will it improve support for student organizations? You have a minute.
So I actually had a meeting with Kevin Merrill to address this issue specifically. So our student organization newsletter is going to be distinctly different than the newswire that's currently distributed. The first in the way that it is going to be distributed, the newswire is sent out via the student engagement platform that they have, and this directly makes it, or I should just say, Microsoft filters all of these messages, or a lot of them, into your others folder or into spam just because of the nature that these messages get sent out. For me, that's exactly what happened. So by being able to send this out directly through the student government or the student body president email, we'll be able to mitigate that issue. Additionally, we plan on working with Kevin to mitigate any overlapping messaging that happens to ensure that each newsletter has their own individual specific place within or to benefit student organizations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Brody, you have 45 seconds if you wish to respond to that.
Just going back a question, you referenced materials at the Prospective Victory Retreat. What materials did you receive?
We received a notebook and a pen and a schedule.
Was there a PowerPoint on the screen?
We didn't receive a PowerPoint, no.
Okay, it wasn't sent to you, but did you view slides in a PowerPoint regarding the sessions that I named? Again, what to expect in office, regent and trustee, policy in office, being ready for debates, what's ahead, all alleged.
Again, Nolan Klemschrud and I both viewed those PowerPoints, yes.
The question was, what materials, did you bring home from that?
I would like to be clear, and this is also reflecting on the question you just asked me previously. As a public relations student, as a student interested in public campaigns, all of the information that I've previously seen and received or viewed at the conference was information about how to run a public relations campaign. There was no outside information, no outside material, no outside influence. It was an educational opportunity aimed at networking that both Nolan and I attended. And again, after the conference, my campaign has not been affiliated with the organization since. I would like to reflect back on the questions that were being asked about our platform now, because that is what students are representing.
And that's time. Brody, you have a little bit of time left if you wish to respond, but Josie is out of time, so she cannot respond to any more questions.
I think the students deserve to know. I think it's on their minds. I think they deserve to know, and I think you should tell them.
All right, moving on to our next question. This will be for Brody's platform. Your campaign promises to create a club clinic focused on roundtable workshops and education for student organizations. Who will staff this club clinic if implemented?
I'm really fortunate that I already answered this one. Our committee is what we're gonna use to staff that. It's going to be filled with leaders who already have experience. Maybe they were a club president or a club treasurer their junior year, and they're looking for something a little different their senior year. and they would like to still be involved. So instead of leading again where they might be bored, stressed, or otherwise, what they can do is join our platform in creating the club clinic. So there we have, again, that 72-hour response time. I also, again, echoing just a few minutes ago that the ideal response time would be 10 minutes from an in-person conversation in in-person office hours. But if we can't see you or your schedule doesn't allow, 72 hours max, our club clinic will be responded to either by Nolan and myself personally or by our members of the the committee team.
And Josie, you have 45 seconds if you wish to respond to that.
Yeah, so have you had any specific meetings with campus offices or staff members to see if we can confirm realistic support and incentivize these faster response times?
Yeah, this would be run by student government. We haven't spoken to groups because we're displeased with the student experience that they receive from them. We think we might be able to do a better job and might be able to help our students in ways that we haven't seen before. Again, that funding fast track, that allows students to go through the student government rules that already exist and already been used. Instead of going to a meeting just to be told that they did their paperwork wrong, we can meet with them and save everybody some time.
Josie, you have 45 more seconds to respond if you have any further comment.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that when Henry and I were building our platform that we were really intentional about was partnering with student engagement and hearing the perspective of student engagement because they do so much work with student organizations right now. So we thought it was really important that we got this perspective and that we heard these different ideas. So I guess that's my only comment for the Kuzi Klemsrud campaign is maybe partnering with student engagement or hearing about some of the resources that they might already have available to ensure there isn't any overlapping messaging.
And Brady, you have 45 seconds to respond to that if you
Yeah,
wish.
I would love to hear, if you have ideas of what those existing resources are, or if you have ideas for how we could implement them. Otherwise, we mentioned directly the funding fast track. I know enough about finance to say a lot about that. So the funding fast track, again, I'll repeat that. That is to save our students paperwork and save them time. We can easily find the right rules that apply to the right club, whether they're requesting a new ice cream machine, whether they're having an event, whatever it looks like. These are all things that student government already sees, but helping the clubs get to the student government senate and get to the finance committee where they see a yes or a no is going to be a lot more expedited than going through systems that already exist, which would be committee and no's.
And that's time. Josie, you have 16 more seconds if you wish to use them.
I'm good, thank you.
Very well.
Next question is for Josie. What will your #1 priority in office be?
Our #1 priority would be fostering an environment of inclusion and connection here at Iowa State. Like I said previously, every single student probably knows what it feels like to not feel like they belong when they walk into a room or not feel like they are fully represented. And so when Henry and I were building our campaign team, when we were building our platform, making sure that representation and those diverse ideas were present was #1. And so that is one of the things that I will value most throughout my entire time as Iowa State University Student Body President is making sure those unique perspectives and those unique ideas are brought to the table every single time.
Brody, you have a chance to respond if you wish.
No response, thank you.
Josie, you have 45 more seconds if you wish anything else. Perfect.
thank you.
We'll move on to our next question. This is for Brody. You also emphasize increasing financial transparency in student government. Why do you believe that this is an issue, and what specific steps would you take to promote financial transparency?
We may have mentioned financial transparency. Our list of our 5 campaign points are visible on our @VoteKuziKlem Instagram page. Please follow it if you're not already. Even if you're not a supporter, you can see an opposing view. Going back to your question, financial transparency has been provided through the cent-by-cent breakdown by the past administration. What I'd like to do is look through all of that. Instead of say what cent-by-cent is, maybe we say what groups we fund or other statistics. Again, Josie recognized that I'm a STEM major. Those skills that I have in my toolbox can easily help us to analyze where we spend our money. We do talk about funding cuts to resources that don't serve students. I think that's an important issue to us, and looking closely at that will be important this next year.
Josie, you have 45 seconds if you wish to respond.
Yeah, so data and analysis is all really important, but it doesn't really have a purpose unless action is taken upon it. So can you explain a little bit of how you guys are planning to take action on these different initiatives?
And you can respond, you got 45 seconds.
I have an excellent example. In the student government office, there's a line item that says fax machine or fax connection. We don't have a fax machine in our student government office. That's number one. We're going to get rid of that cost for a fax machine. There's so many other examples that we can look at. That's just one. That's easy, it's simple, and it saves students money.
Josie, 45 more seconds for back and forth. Do you have any further comment?
I do not.
Very well. Birdie, do you have any more comment for that?
We'll take a look at every line item. It's all important. I just had a club meeting the other day where a treasurer told me he wished he could have another $2,000 for every event. Another $2,000. Now, that's a lot of money. But by slowly finding things that are wasteful spending, we can easily build up to that $2,000. And I think that should be pretty attainable. $2,000 in 1 year, that's pretty simple. I think we're aiming quite a bit higher, maybe at a zero.
For all, thank you both.
Josie, your campaign emphasizes equitable access to food through community partnerships. Beyond the concept, what specific steps will you take to establish these partnerships and ensure the guide stays up to date?
Yeah, so this platform point came directly from our meeting with Austin Cook, which he is the food security and basic needs specialist, and then Charlotte Hampson, the director of student wellness. After having this conversation, we identified a specific area in SHOP that we can begin to expand equitable access to foods and culturally accepted foods for students. So we have identified a way that we can create shopability guides, partner with the local community, and create kosher and halal shopability guides for students to be implemented at different tabling events that student government does. So most notably, I was asked to develop different literature for the, I believe UROC was having a tabling event or something similar. So having this information readily available for students at those different tabling events would be really important, because we again believe that diverse access to foods is just a right for students and helps them feel more connected to the campus that they live on.
Brody, you have a chance to respond?
Sure. Yeah, I think on Thursday, I think Henry mentioned something about not have been in a dining hall previously. Have you been in a dining hall? I know you talked about your community experience. What dining halls do you frequent, or what do you know about dining halls?
Yeah, so to stay more connected to the campus, my freshman and sophomore years, I did pay for not a full dining plan, but I did pay for swipes, so that way I could participate in meal times with my friends.
Were those typically sit-down dining centers?
Yeah, so Seasons is one of the ones that I've used in the past.
Okay, and then the offerings that already exist in kitchens for those with dietary restrictions, or specific menus that have icons that say what might be kosher or halal, what do you think of those? Are those existing infrastructure that you would change or remove? What does that look like?
Yeah, so you're misidentifying the different shopability guides, or the ways we're hoping to combat this. One of the things that we identified with SHOP is a lot of students will go to SHOP and choose kosher and halal options, but a lot of these students, according to the meetings that we've had, can financially afford kosher and halal options. So those are not students that we're targeting in dining halls. Those are students that we're targeting that live off campus, commuter students, just residents within the Ames community. So yes, while it's still important that those resources are accessible to students that live in dining halls, we're targeting this other population of students that don't have that access.
Brody, you still have 29 more seconds if you have any further comment.
Yeah, in conversations with the director of housing, some of what we've talked about was the large student population as freshmen who live in res halls. I think it's somewhere close to 98, 99%. Correct me if I'm wrong afterwards, but the large student population in their freshman year lives on campus, and that's their potentially first experience at Iowa State. How can you help them?
Yeah, so these food shopability guides are still really important, but 69% of students are commuter students. So with that being said, it is important to us that those needs are being met, because a lot of students that are living in dining halls have...
And that's time. Brody, you still have 2 seconds if you wish to have any final words. Very well. And then for the final question for these candidate-specific questions, this is to Brody. According to your platform, you promised to, quote, reform the Iowa State student experience, specifically, and you've mentioned this, to explore bringing a spring celebratory event. Many such proposals, including concerts, have gone unfulfilled. What makes your promise different, and how will you get it done?
I think one stance that our campaign has is that we would like to do instead of announce. We would like to do and whatever it takes to have our spring unifying event. I've said 3 major components of that. 1, working with admin. 2, working around the things that have not happened in the past, the campus concert and the comedian. $50,000 to a comedian we never saw. I was disappointed when I heard the news. And finally, it's going to take the input of students so that it is unifying. We've identified a lot of student groups who are all over campus and have all kinds of different interests. I think they have a lot of buy-in already, and they're going to come support this. They're going to be frequenting this event. Maybe it turns into a week-long celebration called Iowa State Week. I don't know. The sky's the limit, and our goal is to have this ready to go in April of 2027 and have a foundation for people who don't even go here yet to see something about our university and decide to go here instead of the University of Iowa. Yeah.
Josie, you have 45 seconds if you wish to respond.
I think it's important when we're talking about doing instead of announcing, it's important to acknowledge that the past administration with that comedian, that was a big, or the current administration, that was a big initiative for them. The comedian was canceled after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and after it was, we had a false reporting of a firearm being on campus, and that then directly caused the price of security to go way up. So it became just unsafe, and we weren't able to afford the increased security. So can you provide any issues like that happen all the time? So how are you going to mitigate that?
Where do you have 45 seconds?
I don't know that I can say that assassinations happen all the time, but I can say that fire alarms do happen all the time. I don't know how that changes a security price, but I do know the incident you're talking about. So looking in particular at the Spring Unifying event, something that we can look at is an indoor space. It's a lot easier to secure, it's simple, and it's feasible. A small space would make it entirely possible. Thinking the Sheeman building, maybe even we rent out Hilton. Whatever that looks like, we're ready to invest in our students. They've been promised this twice and haven't gotten it, so it's time we fill the promises that have come previously.
Josie, you have 45 more seconds for back and forth. You have further comment.
Yeah, again, there are 30,000 students here on campus, and if we want to make a campus unifying event, having it in a small indoor facility might not achieve that goal. But additionally, just to clarify some of the words that I said, I didn't say a fire alarm. There was allegations of a firearm, a weapon being on campus. So that was just one of those things that we don't want it to happen all the time, but those are issues that do just pop up, and it wasn't to the fault of the current administration. It was just the current climate of how things are right now. So I guess those are just my 2 statements is if it's going to be a campus unifying, how are you going to accommodate so many students, and how are we going to keep those students safe?
Yeah, I think I named Hilton and Sheeman. Those are large capacity buildings. They are not small, as you mentioned. It's entirely feasible. We can look at the turnout of current student government events, such as the expo, such as, like you said, golf carting around, how many burritos you gave out. Maybe we have a number on that. You talked about analytics and data. We can look at all of those factors and make an informed decision. I'm not saying we're going to decide how many seats we have in a room based off burritos, but what I am saying is it's entirely feasible, and the naysayers and the no's make it much harder, and I can promise that we are committed to make this happen.
Josie, you still have 4 seconds if you want to get anything in.
I'd just like to say I do think it's important to have campus unifying events. I just wanted to clarify.
And then, Bird, you have 8 seconds if you have any final words.
Cool.
Excellent. We will now take a 10-minute intermission and collect questions from the audience. Identical to the Vice President debate, you can submit the QR code that will be posted on screen during our break. That will take you to an online form. You can write questions to individual candidates or both candidates. We do ask that both questions are appropriate, and you can also access the form right here in the Great Hall in the Memorial Union. When we return, we will be asking the candidates' questions have been submitted by the student body. We will return at 7:36.
1, 2, 3. No?
Now we will begin the audience question portion.
I can't speak if my mic's off. The first question will go to Josie. You currently serve as Student Government Senior Director of Communications. Have you considered implementing your PR-related goals now instead of waiting for next term? You have 60 seconds for that.
Yeah, so that's a great question. A couple of the issues that I faced getting things rolling at the beginning was I did not have a senior director, or I did not have a director of marketing to help me. So it was hard to make sure that everything was streamlined and going efficiently. One of the most notable things was we are not allowed to give out the social media passwords to everything, to people on the committee. So this meant that I had to go through and schedule posts every single day. I had to proof all the posts. I had to also focus on the outreach events that were happening. So there was a lot happening all at once, and not having that team member was really challenging. So with that being said, some of the things that I'm hoping to put in actions, it'll be important that I have a well-established team going into my candidacy. So that's why Henry and I are prioritizing having that team built within the first 3 meetings. We have 3 meetings to get everyone sat, everyone ready, up and going, so that way we can have a smooth summer.
And Brody, you have 45 seconds to respond to that if you want.
No response, thank you.
Next question is for Brody. How will you make sure to continue to reach out to clubs to get their input even after the election?
I'm so glad I brushed on it earlier. We have had a lot of outreach to a lot of different groups. As I said already, my cabinet members are going to come from those top leaders of those clubs and organizations that we've already talked to. It's simple. I think a lot of them are ready to elevate their positions. Student government is the highest position that one should be able to have at Iowa State, and I take a lot of pride and respect in saying that. So in filling the cabinet, outreach to those groups again is going to be very important to me, and that's what we're already planning.
Josie, you have a chance to respond if you wish.
Yeah, so the way that Henry and I approach student government and the way this organization is structured as a whole, right now the way we see a lot of the help that students get, we see student government at the top and student organizations below, and the relationships are really transactional and really one-sided. But Henry and I, in every single meeting that we have with student orgs, with every meeting that we have with individuals, we discuss how we want to flip this relationship. Student government should be a tool and a resource. It should not be a confusing, structured entity that student orgs are afraid to engage with. So this is why we find it really important to foster those connections with student organizations to ensure they feel like they can reach out to us and request resources whenever needed.
And then Brody, you have 45 seconds if you wish.
I think that's a great segue to the club clinic. That's exactly what we're aiming to do. We're aiming to bring these resources to the students. Another one of our points, I've talked about it quite a bit here, is we need to make student government student first. So doing all of those things that Josie mentioned are critical in making student government known to all students and embracing the club clinic.
And this next question is to both of you. We will begin with Brody. What are some ways that you have specifically contributed to improving the student experience here at Iowa State? 60 seconds.
Again, unfortunately, it was canceled. The biggest contributor that I thought that I had to our student population is when I was able to say yes to an event that brought our students together, and that was a comedian over homecoming. I had lots of thoughts and discussion about it. It came to Student Government Senate very quick. It was the first time seeing it, yes or no, $50,000, and we had to navigate that. So giving back to our community was so much in the decision making in that. What does it look like for students who, this is their first year at Iowa State, and what does it look like for students who are in their final year, or their seniors, or they're in their 5th year program, right? Whatever it looks like, I think that decision making was really great looking back. So biggest return to students that I participated in was saying yes as a senator to the student government homecoming comedian.
And Josie, you have 45 seconds if you wish.
Can you repeat it, please?
Yeah, of course. What are some ways you've specifically contributed to improving the student experience? And you have 60 seconds, not 45, excuse me.
Yeah, no worries. So just as an individual, my number one value is inclusion and is bringing people to the table and making sure everyone feels like their opinions matter and that they're valued here on campus. And this can be seen in every single initiative that I take place in, no matter if it's student government, if it's Ag Policy Club, if it's my public relations major, I always try to bring people in. With that being said, I think it's important that I also share some of the different initiatives that I've participated in. So the first one being, I orchestrated and planned this big ag policy panel. We had over 35, 40 students come and attend this panel and help them see where they belong post-grad, help them see the different opportunities available to them because the major is so small and it is hard to see your place 10 years down the road. Additionally, I invite people to ask me about how to get involved in Public Relations Committee. I've asked so many different individuals, included them in the formation of my committee, to ensure that students feel like they have a place in student government and they can really hear all perspectives.
And Brody, you have 45 seconds if you wish to respond.
Yeah, again, that club clinic, that unifying spring event, that includes characteristics from all of the things that we both discussed here. I think getting our clubs together with inclusivity improves our unifying event. It's unifying, right? Like that's the whole description of the word. Having those things come together is very important. That's why we've had so much outreach to identity-based groups and asked them their thoughts and presented to them about our campaign points, including that spring unifying event.
And Josie, you have 45 more seconds if you wish to have
Yeah.
a comment.
Reflecting back on Henry and I's platform, we believe strengthening student organizations will directly strengthen the different opportunities available to students. And I think the Kuzi-Klemschud campaign can agree with us on this aspect. But through creating clear, what's the word that I'm looking for? Trainings for executive officer teams to ensure smooth transitions, creating clear resources so students fully know how to plan events, how to get involved on campus, making sure that we eliminate the red tape for student organizations is #1 priority for us to ensure that students feel like they belong on campus, whether you're here for 1 year or whether you're here for 4.
Thank you both.
This next question is directed towards Josie. In the spring of 2024, you ran for and won a Senate seat. Why did you decide to not serve for the 2024-2025 term?
Yeah, this is a great question. So I had identified that student government was a really big priority or a really big influence here on campus. I, at the same time, ran for I was the North Central State Vice President for FFA. I ran for the state president position, and I lost. And that was a position that when I was running, I wanted to put all of my preparation into it. When I initially decided to run for that Senate seat, I hadn't decided if I was going to run for that state president position yet. So I ended up giving up my Senate seat because in everything I do, I believe it's important to prioritize the things that are most valuable to me. So at that point in time, I identified that the 5 years I spent in FFA, the 20,000 members that I represented, was most important. So I gave up that seat in hopes that someone else who's able to dedicate all of their time to that position would be able to. Fortunately, I was invited back into student government, and I've been able to make an impact that way. So that's the reason why I gave up that seat, but I'm glad to be back.
Brody, you have a chance to respond if you wish.
No, thanks.
And this next question is directed towards Brody. How will you specifically improve communication between student government and organization presidents throughout the year, not just one time after you're elected? You have 60 seconds.
This is another question that I've kind of hit home on. So the question at hand is engaging with student leaders. We have multiple ways that we'll engage with student leaders. The first I've already mentioned tonight is filling our cabinet. Those are where our cabinet members are going to come from. Next is the club clinic. The leaders will come to us when they need help. We're going to come to them when we need their help. The third really ties into that one is a unifying event where we need student engagement and student participation from all kinds of places on campus, whether you're in event planning, event management, all of those things, along with STEM, CALS, design, LAS, all those people need to come together to make a unifying event possible and to make it unifying, which is why we'll be returning to reach out to those people, not just once, but multiple times throughout the next year as we plan for the next 13 months to get that spring unifying event.
And Josie, you have 45 seconds if you wish to comment.
Yeah, I think that's really important, but one of the things that Henry and I identified was, again, student orgs are how you stay connected with students and how you maintain relationships with with every single student possible. So that's why we have created our newsletter and created the idea of the newsletter that will go out 6 times a year. That's 6 times for possible interaction with students. We also will implement an open door policy, invite people into our office hours to try and solve any potential issues that they may have. So I really do admire, so far, the Cousy-Klemsrud campaigns, how they strive to include those students and have those conversations, but I think there's a couple other ways we can continue those conversations with student organizations.
And Brody, you have 45 seconds if you wish to respond.
Yeah, I just noticed that you mentioned the open door policy, office hours. Those are things that I've mentioned tonight as part of the club clinic. We're committed to those. We're committed to that maximum 72-hour response time. We're committed to that spring unifying event. I think all of those things go hand in hand. And maybe when somebody comes in to help learn about financing their club, they can learn about plans for the unifying event in April of 2027.
Thank you both.
This next question is directed towards both candidates, but Josie will go first. Student government, through ASSET, appropriates a very significant amount of student fee dollars towards non-student initiatives like faculty healthcare. Do you see this as an issue? If so, what will you do to address this?
I think it's important that I'm first clear that I'm not 100% well-versed in some of these policies. Because of my current role within student government, I focus on a couple of different areas, but I do think it's important to pay attention to those different initiatives and different things that student dollars are going to. Henry and I, when we built our platform, we built it on maximizing the student dollar. The $80 get paid into student government every single year to ensure that students' dollars are being used to the maximum capacity. So this would be something that we'd be interested in looking into and interested in addressing. But again, anything and everything that we do, we prioritize limiting the financial stress of students, maximizing the dollars, and maximizing the resources made available to them.
Brody, same question to you.
I think you all have heard my response to the idea surrounding this already. However, in my role as a senator, tomorrow I get the pleasure of reviewing our Constitution, which has a line that, rephrasing here, but it says the units of service that student government pays into is for students. The unit of service, it could be one bus ride, it could be one daycare hour, whatever the credit or the unit of service is now limited to students. So as a senator, I get the pleasure of voting on that here soon. So I think that one's already solved, and I'm glad I'm in a Senate position that gets to approve that and give money back to our Senate and our students in that way.
Josie, you have a chance to respond if you wish.
No, thank you.
This next question is also to you both, and Brody will go first. Do you believe that the legislative, judicial, and executive branches of student government are equal? And if so, how will you work with the Speaker and Chief Justice to make sure that student government runs smoothly? You have 60 seconds.
Sure. So from my time in student government, the past 11 months, right, I've worked with mostly the legislative and the executive branches. Those are the two groups that I interact with. The judicial branch, I really don't see much of. So strengthening that relationship where somebody who gets to vote yes or no and make decisions on very important things, maybe they should be able to interact with those people more frequently. So that'd be my change.
Josie, same question to you, 60 seconds.
Yeah, I do believe that all 3 different branches are equal, but I'd have to agree with Brody on this. I believe we can do more to strengthen the relationships. As a cabinet member, as someone that came in at the very beginning of Senate and previously hadn't had a ton of student government experience, I approached the situation a little bit alarmed with how some of the relationships seem to be. I'm someone that I value relationships first. I believe conflict should be solved through meaningful conversation and relationships. So making sure that we have strong communication with our chief officers, with all branches, is #1 priority for me.
Brody, you have 45 seconds if you have any further comment.
No, thanks.
Josie, any further comment from you?
No, thank you.
Perfect.
The next question is also for both of you, but Josie will go first. How will you support Black and Brown students as well as international students in the current political climate?
Yeah, so again, student organization support is number one to Henry and I, and we believe that student organizations are able to provide a resource and provide a perspective that no single individual across campus can. So making sure that student orgs are aware of the resources available to them, but also ensuring that students know of the resources that they can go to in times of need. So specifically making sure students feel accepted within the cultural foods that they have available to them, or they are able to limit some of the financial strain that they may have, or they know of the different organizations on campus that try to bring as much success to a student as possible. So those are just some of the small ways. Again, making sure each perspective and group of individuals across campus is represented in our cabinet, in our Senate, is also a huge priority.
Same question to you, Brody.
Could you repeat it, please?
How will you support Black and brown students as well as international students in the current political climate?
In the current political climate, what we've already addressed as one of our primary campaign points is supporting student rights. Education is very, very large for these audiences and every audience of every identity. Knowing what you can say, what you can do, maybe what your visa or your international student title restricts you to, or what that changes versus somebody who is a resident or a non-resident in college. I think the community here is comprised of all kinds of backgrounds, bringing them all together, not just specifically Black or brown, but any audience and any background I think will be important.
Josie, you have a chance to respond.
Yeah, one of the other initiatives within our student engagement pillar that Henry and I created was our civic participation and engagement pillar. And with that, we've had meaningful conversations with the Carrie Chapman Catt Center here on campus. That's an unbiased resource that gives students direct knowledge on how to vote, how to register to vote, how to be more civically engaged, because Henry and I believe that students don't only deserve a voice on campus, they deserve a voice within the community that they live in. They're gonna be residents here of Ames at least for the semester that they're here, potentially 2, potentially 4 years, potentially more. So making sure that students are aware of the rights that they have here on campus and the way that they can exercise those rights is really important to us.
Brody, you have a chance to respond.
I actually had the pleasure of registering to vote in Ames this past November. It was quick and easy and simple, and I wish more people voted in our Ames community, especially campus town. It's very, very low turnout. You can go look at the records. There will be more students, knock on wood, right, likely, that vote in a student government election than vote in the campus town ward, and I wish that could be different.
Thank you both. Now we will enter closing statements. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to make a closing statement, and we will start with Josie.
At the end of the day, this campaign has always been about students. Henry and I did not just write a platform, we built it by putting in the work. We sat down with campus staff, student leaders, and campus partners to understand where students are struggling and where student government can actually make change. What we built is not theoretical, it's actionable, realistic, and ready to implement. To be clear, the Kelly Rose campaign has never had any affiliation with outside private organizations. Students deserve leadership that is focused on meeting their needs. That is exactly what Henry and I have worked to do. We built a team of students from across campus who helped shape this platform through their experiences, their ideas, and their commitment to making Iowa State a better place. Now, the question is not just who can talk about change, it is who is prepared to deliver it. We are ready to strengthen support for student organizations through clearer communication and stronger training. We are ready to expand service opportunities that can help students give back while easing financial stress. And we are ready to advocate for campus resources that reflect the real needs of our student body. Leadership is not about talking the loudest, it is about listening, showing up, and doing the work. That is what Henry and I have done throughout this campaign, and that is how we will lead. If you want a student government that is prepared on day one, focused on results, and focused on students, we ask you to vote Kelly Rose March 3rd and 4th. Thank you.
Brody?
I'm going to end with where this election should begin. Honesty. Honesty in that I don't need to name an organization to make a point. If we're being honest, students don't need more vague commitments. They don't need more polished language that sounds good and changes nothing. They need a government that's measurable, accountable, and impossible to ignore when they need a helping hand. That is what we're running to build. They say, loyal sons, forever true. And we will fight the battle through. We sing those words together with conviction and pride. But loyalty demands more than unity. It demands courage. It's measured by how we lead, who we stand for, and why we're here at the end of the day. So this is a choice: a government that announces or a government that delivers. Our slogan is simple and our message is clear. This is the change we need. Vote Kuzi Clem on March 3rd. Thank you to all in attendance, those online, and the Election Commission.
This concludes the 2026 presidential debate. Thank you to both campaigns for attending tonight, and thank you to the members of the Election Commission and Iowa State Daily, as well as the MU technical staff that helped in preparation for this event.
Make sure to cast your vote in the 2026 student government elections on either March 3rd or March 4th. All Iowa State students will receive an email on each election day with a link to vote. In-person voting locations will open at 10 a.m. and run until 4 p.m. and will have donuts available for any students that vote in person. We will publish the specific locations next week. Thank you again to everyone involved. Don't forget to cast your vote. Have a great night and go
Go Cyclones!